Guys, Iran has placed 3 conditions to end this war. The first condition is that the US and Israel must recognize Iran's legitimate rights. The United States and Israel will have to accept that Iran also has the right to nuclear technology. Iran should have the right to enrich uranium for peaceful purposes. The US and Israel will have to accept that Iran is a major power in West Asia. Efforts to weaken Iran will have to stop. Attempts at regime change inside Iran will also have to stop. Iran's second condition for ending the war is war reparations. After the attacks carried out by Israel and the US, the war began in West Asia. Iran says that it should receive financial compensation for the damages caused by this war. Infrastructure inside Iran has been damaged. Military installations have been destroyed. Civilian casualties have occurred. Strikes have been conducted inside Iran. Economic sanctions have been imposed on Iran. All of this should be compensated. Iran says this is necessary because the US and Israel initiated this war. Therefore, they will have to pay money for Iran's rebuilding. Iran's third condition to stop the war is that it should receive guarantees that it will not be attacked again in the future. Iran wants binding international guarantees that the US and Israel will not attack it again. Considering past experiences, Iran wants formal security guarantees of this kind. Obviously, for Israel and the US, accepting these conditions is next to impossible. Iran wants recognition of its right to nuclear technology. However, Western countries have been saying for decades that if Iran enriches uranium, it could develop nuclear weapons. The US and Israel have repeatedly said that they will not allow Iran to develop nuclear weapons. Therefore, for these two countries, accepting Iran's demand regarding nuclear technology is almost impossible. Accepting Iran as a legitimate regional power in West Asia is also against Israel's interests. Western countries are already worried about Iran's growing influence. They want to keep it in check. This war is happening for that reason. Iran's controversial demand that it should receive war reparations is also unlikely to be accepted. No country usually pays war reparations unless it has clearly lost the war. Israel and the US will not accept defeat. They are already declaring that they have won. Admitting defeat and paying war reparations would be politically dangerous for their leaders. Therefore, that is unlikely to happen. Iran is also unlikely to receive any formal security guarantees that it will not be targeted in the future. There will be no guarantees that cyber attacks will not be carried out against it. There will be no guarantees that sanctions pressure will stop. All of this is unlikely to happen. The US and Israel may agree to a temporary ceasefire. However, they will not agree to long-term security guarantees. Remember, a comprehensive nuclear deal with Iran had already been signed earlier. Trump rejected that deal. Even recently, negotiations had progressed quite far again. Iran had even agreed to give unprecedented concessions. However, this was also ignored and the war was started. It shows that the decision to wage war had already been taken in advance. The only thing is that Israel and the US underestimated Iran. They did not know that Iran had been preparing for this war for decades. These two countries did not expect this kind of retaliation. Now they want a ceasefire because they did not attack Iran expecting a long war. They believed that just like in Venezuela, they would target Iran's top leadership, and after that, quickly a regime change would happen inside Iran. They believed that the war would end within a day or two. However, that did not happen. Now the US and Israel are stuck in a war with Iran. They want a temporary ceasefire. Through indirect channels, a ceasefire offer was sent to Iran. However, Iran is not ready to accept it. Iran knows that Western countries will use this temporary ceasefire to buy time. They will use it to rebuild and to plan further. At the moment, they have jumped into this war in an unprepared and unplanned manner. Because of this, they are paying a heavy cost. In just 1 week, the US has already spent more than $10 billion on this war. As the war continues for a longer time, this cost will keep increasing. This goes against Trump's campaign promise. If this continues, the risk will increase that even Trump's blind supporters may start questioning him. So the US is trapped in a very tough situation here. Winning is very difficult. Accepting defeat is not possible. Meanwhile, Iran is sending a diplomatic message that it is not rejecting peace, that it is ready to stop the war, that it is ready for peace. However, Iran says that peace should come on its own terms. By talking about peace, Iran is trying to gather diplomatic support for itself. Countries such as Russia and China are already supporting Iran. In this way, by publicly announcing its conditions, Iran is conducting psychological warfare. Iran is sending a message that it is not desperate for negotiations. If necessary, it can prolong the war. It is already prepared for that possibility. By doing this, Iran strengthens its bargaining position. This is also a very effective step for domestic political messaging. Iran's leadership will be able to project strength in front of its people. Heavy bombing has taken place inside Iran. Infrastructure has been damaged. Top leadership figures have been eliminated. In such a situation, the Iranian government cannot appear weak. This is especially important when Israel and the US are making strong efforts to bring about regime change inside Iran. By putting forward these conditions, Iran's leadership is sending a message to its people that it will negotiate from a position of strength. It will not allow the US and Israel to impose conditions on it. The problem is that, from the perspective of the US and Israel, accepting these demands is almost impossible, because these demands contradict the long-standing policies of both countries. Israel views Iran as an existential threat. It is concerned about Iran's missile programs. It is concerned about Iran's nuclear ambitions. Israel is also worried about Iran supporting proxy groups in the region. Therefore, the conditions Iran is presenting are exactly the opposite of what Israel wants. Israel wants to weaken Iran militarily. It wants to reduce Iran's regional power. For this reason, the chances that Israel and the US will accept these conditions are extremely low. As a result, there will not be a quick peace deal. We are likely to see a prolonged regional war. Attacks in West Asia will continue. Iran will keep rejecting mediation and negotiations. Escalation will continue. Attacks on Gulf states may also continue. Global oil routes may continue to be disrupted. Shipping and energy markets have already been disturbed because of the war. Oil prices have already gone above $100 per barrel. Iran has placed such conditions to stop the war that directly clash with the strategic goals of the United States and Israel. Therefore, they are unlikely to accept these conditions. This means that, unfortunately, the conflict is likely to continue for some time. However, it is almost certain that whenever this war ends, it will permanently change the balance of power in West Asia.